Welcome back, guys. Today we will be building a program that guesses a randomly selected number by the computer. Let's get started. We'll start off by importing in the random module. Then we will initiate a variable, computer num, which will be a randomly selected integer between 1 and 400. Then we will initiate a while loop. And as you recall, this will continue running until it hits a break statement within the loop. So within this loop, we will start off by selecting a number, and we will use input, and we will ask, what number do you think the computer selected? And as you can recall, the input, the data type that comes out when you use an input is a string by default. So we will convert this to an integer by putting int in front of it. So now the number that we get will be an integer, which will match the data type of our variable computer name, because that's what we're getting out of this random integer. So now we will do a if statement. If the pick number that we selected is equal to the computer number, then we will print you selected the correct number. And if that's the case, we will break this loop, ending the game. But if that is not the case, meaning our numbers don't match, then we will go to this else block, where we're going to give it certain conditions to help us in choosing the next number that we want to select. So if the computer number was greater than the number that we selected, then we want to print you selected too low. And if that's not the case, then the only other option would be it's too high, so we can just print that out. You selected too high. Because either it's going to be the same number, and if it's not, then it's going to be either too low or too high, which our if-else blocks will take care of. I'm also going to print out the computer number so we can see it, and then once you're finished with it, you can actually take it out and play the game. But I just want to make sure that our coding and our logic makes sense. So if we run the program, the computer selected 376, and let's do 50, and that is too low. Let's do 400, that is too high, and let's do 376, and that's the correct answer. What I want to add in now is a counter, and what the counter is going to do is it's going to keep track of how many times we guessed and how long it took us to guess the correct number. So the counter is going to start off as 0, and for each iteration of our loop, we're going to add 1. So we can add the counter down here. So counter equals counter plus 1. So if it makes it down here, we're going to add 1 to the counter. Or if it makes it in here, meaning we chose the correct one, then we will add counter equals counter plus 1. This way, the counter variable is going to keep track of how many times this loop iterates and how many times we have to keep guessing until we choose correctly. So we have that. Let's set up a variable that's going to have our statement, which is going to tell us how long or how many times it took us to correctly guess the computer's number. So we can do it took you bracket signs number of times to choose correctly, and we can end that with a format and counter, and then we will print this statement. So now we should be able to see how many times it takes us. So the computer chose 301. Let's choose 45, so that's our first attempt, and then let's choose 300. That's our second attempt. And then let's choose 301, and there you go. It took you 3 number of times to choose correctly. So obviously this is a very easy program to make, but it enforces some basic coding techniques that are going to be used as you progress. We used the random module, we used a while loop, and then we also used if-else statements. So if you found this video to be useful and helpful, please remember to like the video and subscribe. And until next time, keep on coding.